Have you ever had one of those moments in a video game where you see something truly spectacular and your jaw just drops straight to the floor? I've experienced that type of thing many times across multiple of the games I've played over the years. And needless to say, a good amount of those moments did occur while I was down in the complex. One of those many moments that I fondly remember even to this day actually happened when I first played the original R3B2. And I'm sure many of you watching this video already know which part of the level I'm referring to. But for those of you who don't, let's guide you through this mission so you can see it all and also just experience that same jaw-dropping moment. Hello everyone, Professor Scaly here, and welcome to the alternate R3B2 level guide. Just like always, we are starting off with the recommended loadout, and for this level, it's going to be something that might look familiar as I've been recommending this quite a bit, and that would be a bio tracker, a mine deployer, and then two mid to long range sentries, so burst and or sniper sentries. And the reason I recommend the bio tracker is because in this level, there is a lot of infectious fog. Some zones won't have too much of it in there, but other zones will be completely filled with the stuff. So if you want to have an easier time both while you're stealthing through zones to deal with enemies, while you're also dealing with the alarms in some of these areas, you're going to want to bring a bio tracker with you, that way you can tag the enemies and have a much easier time dealing with them. As for the mine deployer, there are some alarm doors in this level where it can help out, as well as a blood door, so it's definitely a great tool to bring. I would just say be careful about putting too much tool refill into it, as the amount of mines you start off with is almost enough to deal with all the alarm doors and the blood door in the level, plus even maybe a little bit extra depending on your playstyle. So I would say you could put some tool refill into it, but try not to put too much. Most of your tool refill should be going into your sentries. As for the sentries, these are going to help out tremendously throughout the entirety of the level, especially for that first alarm, as there are no doors we could possibly shut, mine, or C-foam during it. So having two sentries that we could place down for every alarm can help out quite a bit. The reason I recommend burst or sniper sentries is just because we want sentries that are decent at killing enemies, and I was at first a little reluctant to recommend the sniper sentry, as there are some moments where you can't really position it the absolute best, but you are bringing a bio tracker with you, which means as long as you are active in tagging the enemies and keeping bio tracker symbiosis active for the sniper sentries, it can work out well. So if you want to bring two burst or two sniper or one of each, that is perfectly fine. I have found that any combination will get you through this level with relative ease, as long as you just know how to properly use them and as long as your bio tracker person is being active with it. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to bring the HSU Neonate with you to the Unsealer, and that machine is always going to be located inside zone 512, and you and your teammates are going to be starting off inside zone 506. And in here, it's sort of just your typical starting zone. There will be some resources, there will be some enemies. There's also going to be disinfectant packs and fog repellers, which I highly recommend you pick up, as there is a ton of infectious fog in this level. And there's even a fog turbine for you and your team, which sometimes will be located down below in the infectious fog. So if you're having a hard time finding it, use the terminal, ping its exact location, and it'll be easier for you. Aside from all of that though, there are three different security doors tied to the zone, one to the west which leads you to zone 507, one to the east to zone 508, and one to the north to zone 509. And ultimately, zone 509 is where you need to go in order to get towards that Unsealer machine. The thing is though, that security door is unpowered and requires a power cell to be plugged into the nearby generator in order to open it up. So you either have to go to the west or to the east to get that power cell. However, these two zones are not the same as each other. They are quite similar in some regards, but quite different in a few others. So first of all, getting into them, if you go to zone 507, you're going to have to deal with a class 3 alarm. But if you go to zone 508, you're going to have to deal with a class 5 alarm, which is a bit of a difference. This initially will make a lot of people think 507 is the better option since it's the easier alarm to deal with, which isn't entirely incorrect actually, it's sort of accurate. It is an easier alarm to deal with, and there are resources inside zone 507, unlike zone 508, so yeah, you deal with an easier alarm, you get resources back, and you get a power cell, which is what you need to progress further on. So what's the benefit of zone 508? Well, it's a more difficult alarm, there are no resources like med packs or ammo packs in it, the only benefit really being that there are two power cells inside that zone, which is sort of important, because in total, you're going to need 3 different power cells throughout this level. So if you go into zone 507, you're going to have to get that power cell, and then later in the level, you'll have to make another detour into zone 511 to get a power cell from there. However, if you go into Zone 508, you can completely skip Zone 511 and just go straight from 510 into 512 with the extra power cell you were given. So it really just comes down to you and your team. Personally, I would recommend newer groups or just people who aren't as experienced, just deal with 507 and do the easier alarm, as 511 itself really isn't all that difficult. But if you're a bit more skilled or you just want to test yourself, go into 508, deal with a slightly more difficult alarm and the fewer resources. That way you get the extra power cell and you can completely skip that zone later on. As for the alarm doors though, we should probably talk about how to set up for them. As you can see with the map overlay, there's only one possible spawn location for enemies. However, it is pretty close to you. It's only one room away and it's just an open room divider between you and them. So no doors you can shut or mine whatsoever. So you're just going to want to place down both of your sentries, sort of like you can see me doing in the background footage. That way as enemies spawn in, they're getting shot down by both of them. And then you and your teammates just need to focus on the scans. They can and often will go down below into the middle of the room where the infectious fog is, so probably right before you pull the alarm or as you're doing the full team scan, throw a few fog repellers down there. That way if the next set of scans does go down below, the fog repellers are already fully active and you can just easily run down there, get to work on the scans, and you don't have to worry about the infectious fog all that much. But once you finish every single one of the sets of the scans, deal with the rest of the enemies still alive, and then go and pack up your sentries, and then head into whichever one of the two zones you and your team chose. As for these two zones, they are pretty similar to each other. The only type of enemies in them will be giant strikers and or giant shooters. So if you want to, you just simply sneak your way through. All you really need are the resources and the power cell or power cells, depending on which one you went into. So go in, sneak around a bit, or melee kill the giants if you and your team really want to. And once you have everything from inside that zone, head back into zone 506, go to the northeast corner down below in the infectious fog where you'll find that generator, plug a power cell into it, and they'll give you access to the security door to zone 509. Which that security door just simply has a full team scan tied to it, so group up, do the scan, and then you can head right on in. Zone 509 itself though is going to be almost completely covered in infectious fog, and there will be a fair amount of enemies in here, mostly just small regular strikers and shooters, but there will also be a scout patrolling about and a bunch of spitters all over the walls. So make your way through here, hugging that person with the fog turbine. Make sure you're bringing that neonate with you, as well as the extra power cell if you did go into 508. And also keep an eye out for a power cell, as there will always be one of them somewhere inside this zone, and you're definitely going to want to grab that and bring it with you. As you make your way through, taking care of every single one of these things, eventually you'll make your way to the far northern room, and in there you'll be able to find a generator, so you're going to want to plug that power cell into it. And you'll be able to find the security door to zone 510, which will be unpowered until you plug a power cell into that generator I mentioned. And once you do that, you'll be able to access the security door. However, you'll see that there is going to be a class 4 alarm tied to it. So let's take a look at a map overlay, that way you know how to prepare for it. As you can see, there's only one location enemies could possibly spawn from, and there's only one door that actually leads into your room, which would be this one right here. Just make sure it's shut, mine it. If you have a C-foam grenade, you could use it, or you could save it for a little bit later, and then just place your sentries down in the room facing towards it, sort of like you can see me doing. That way, as soon as the door breaks down and enemies actually make it past it, they'll start getting shot down by the sentries, and again, you and your teammates could just focus on the scans. Once everything is set up exactly how you want to, get to work on the scans, make sure you're flashing those spitters quite a bit, that way they're not constantly chipping you away, and also make sure everybody stays alive during this alarm, as the last scan is going to be another full team scan. But once you finish all 4 sets of them, just deal with any of the enemies that are still left alive, pack up your sentries, and once you're certain everything is dead and there isn't one straggler enemy that's going to come sneak up from behind you, you can then go up to that security door, open it up, and head into zone 510. And inside zone 510, you are going to want to be cautious. There are not a lot of regular strikers and shooters in here, but in the middle of the room, there is going to be a birther, and if you wake her up, you might have a bit of an issue on your hand. For those who have not dealt with one though, I would recommend make your way through the zone, deal with all the other regular strikers and shooters best you can without waking anything up, and then when it comes to a birther, if you have a C-foam grenade, just hit her with that and then shoot her tumors until she is dead. Or if you don't have a C-foam grenade, just simply have 2 or 3 people on your team, just, well, all of you, I should say, sorry, get close to her, and then 2 or 3 people on the team focus on shooting the tumors and trying to kill as fast as you can, while somebody who has a weapon with a large magazine size, so maybe an SMG or a machine gun or something, focuses on all the baby strikers that she will spawn in shortly after you wake her up. If you do that, you shouldn't have too much of an issue, but just blast her until she's dead and no longer moving, and make sure any babies she spawned in, if she did spawn them in, are dead. And once everything is taken care of, you could just go throughout the zone, look around for more resources, and then you'll see that you have access to 2 more security doors. One to the west, which leads you to zone 511, and one to the north to zone 512. Now, 512 is ultimately, as we know, where we need to go. but the security door is unpowered and requires a power cell be plugged into it in order to open it up. So if you did go into zone 508 earlier and you have that extra power cell, you can use that and plug it into the generator in the room, and you'll be able to go straight into the zone and skip 511. However, if you went to 507 earlier, you're not going to have that power cell that you need, in which case you're going to have to take a little bit of a detour and go to the west inside zone 511. Thankfully, that security door is just simply a full team scan, and inside zone 511, there will be a lot of resources, but they are guarded by a fair amount of regular strikers and shooters, a singular scout patrolling about, and a pretty good amount of spitters all along the walls. So make your way through, deal with every single one of the enemies one by one, keep an eye out for those resources and the power cell, and once you have everything you need from inside zone 511, head back down to 510, plug the power cell into a generator, and now you have access to the security door to zone 512. However, before we can fully open it up, we're going to have to deal with a class 4 alarm. So let's take a look at one last map overlay. As you can see with this overlay, there are a few different locations enemies can spawn from. You do have 3 down to the south and 1 over to the west. However, those of you who did not open up 511, you can obviously ignore the western spawn, as that will not be a valid spawn for them. So for this alarm, what I recommend you do is mine these specific doors I have labeled, which are flashing right now or just finished flashing. And then if you did not open up the western zone, you can have both of your sentries facing down towards the southern end. That way, once enemies do make it into the room, they have 2 sentries shooting at them. Or if you did open up the western security door to 511, you can have 1 sentry facing down south and 1 facing over to the west, and you should be good. Once your setup is exactly how you want it to be, activate the alarm, get to work on the scans, and once all the scans are finished, deal with the enemies, pack up the sentries, and then go back to the security door to zone 512. And at this point, you then just now have to deal with the blood door portion of it, which isn't too big of a deal. Place 1 or 2 mines on the blood door and your sentries facing towards it, and you should have no issue whatsoever. Deal with all the blood door enemies, then pack up your sentries and head inside. And in there, you're going to be able to find a few more resources you can supply with. There will be another fog turbine, which you don't need, but I suppose if you're like me, you could bring it back with you to extraction. You'll be able to find a disinfect station, so if anybody has infection, you can fully disinfect. And there will be 4 unsealer machines. Only one of them will be powered though, so just look around until you see one that you can actually place the neonate into. And once you and your team are fully ready to go, just plug that neonate into the machine, wait for the animation to finish playing, and then it'll spit back out. You can pick it up, and at this point, all you have to do is make it back to the beginning of the level and get to the extraction scan inside zone 506. The thing is though, an extraction alarm will initiate shortly after the neonate is out of the machine, so you are going to have to blast your way through strikers, shooters, as well as the occasional giant strikers in order to make it back safely, which really isn't too much of an issue. Just have 1 person carry the neonate, 1 person carry the fog turbine, and the other 2 people, ideally one of those 2 people being the person with the biotracker, just make their way through the enemies. Keep the other 2 people safe. If need be, you could throw some fog repellers or just drop items and start shooting at the enemies, and just make your way to extraction, plop the neonate into it, which will then cause the scan to gain progress, and at this point, you just simply have to hold out here for a little bit. You're going to have enemies coming after you, but overall, shouldn't be too difficult to deal with. It is a long extraction scan, but once you get to 100%, you are done and you have beaten alternate R3B2. And that's all there is to it. Alternate R3B2, just like the original, did an amazing job of introducing players to the birther. Having all those tumors along the walls in the previous zone sort of gives players an indirect hint that something is not quite right. But before they get to move onward, they have to deal with that class 4 alarm, which can easily distract you from the idea that something dangerous might be up ahead. And then when that alarm is finished and you open up that security door, you're greeted by what some would describe as a very unsettling room. Tumors all over the place, a layer of infectious fog covering the floor, and in the middle of the room, you see a sleeping enemy that you probably have no idea what it is or what it can even do. And all that's going through your mind is, what the heck did we just get ourselves into? As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that it was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks for this level that you want to share, any questions from me, or you just have something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my lovely community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast. Until next time, thank you everyone for the amazing support these past few years. I still can't believe we just recently hit the channel's 3-year anniversary, and hopefully, I'll see you all in the next video.